Hi everyone, I'm Steve Stoller.
And I'm Shannah Haley, and this is Inside Plano, where we take you behind the scenes of our city.
We'll introduce you to the faces and places who help make this a great place to live.
And give us lots of reasons to love Plano. Happy New Year, Steve.
Happy New Year to you, Shannah, and welcome to 2019. How was your holiday season?
It was great. We actually traveled up to Kansas. I don't get to go up there very often to see my family, and it was fabulous because we welcomed a brand new nephew to the clan.
Wonderful.
Over the holidays.
Congratulations.
Yes, a Christmas baby, so that was very exciting, and tons of special family meals and time to putter around the house. I got a billion projects done. And so that means that I'm rested and I'm ready for a new year in Plano working for the city. How about you?
Well, I just got back from Mexico. We had this
wow.
vacation planned in August, and unfortunately my mother-in-law passed away, so we had to delay the vacation. So we had a wonderful week just north of Playa del Carmen. It was peaceful, it was relaxing, but the water was very cold.
Now, you're supposed to go to Mexico to get away and warm up, so not quite as advertised.
We usually go during the summer when the water is very warm. It's like bathtub water, but I'll tell you, the water was very cold.
I think that's really special, though, that you and your family, your immediate family, were able to spend that time together. And there's no better way to relax and come back with your batteries recharged.
Right, and as you know, we have two boys, and they're 24 and 21, and we're just amazed that they still want to go on vacation with us at their age.
That says a lot about how great you all are as parents.
Well,
and
thank
I
you.
think you're great as a coworker, so
Well,
I totally
I feel
understand.
the same. Thank you, Shannah.
Well, you know, while you were in Mexico, there was some big news at the end of December about one of the top things here in Plano that people ask us about, Collin Creek Mall.
You know, my wife always gets mad at me when I look at my email, but I couldn't help looking at it and seeing that news, and it was a Friday when we were on the beach, and it made my day, because this has been something that I know the city management and even the elected officials have been looking at for a long time. This is the gateway into Plano from the south. It's a very, very important property. And anyone who's been to Collin Creek Mall over the last several years know that business has been tough there. So we've been looking forward to trying to find the right fit. And this developer is coming in. They have very big plans for that property. They want to make it mixed use, and everyone is very, very excited about it.
Yeah, I think it'll be really interesting to watch that project as it moves forward. You know, as with any kind of project in the city, it's not that a developer can just walk in the door and lay down plans and say this is what they're going to do. They first have to present a plan to the city, and that goes through the planning and zoning process. So we're just in the initial days as of the recording of this podcast with news that the property is sold. And I have many fond memories of Collin Creek Mall, and I know that people who've lived in Plano longer than I have even better memories back from when it was first built. I think there were soccer fields. Officer David Tilley was telling us about playing soccer and baseball out in the fields before the mall was built. But I actually registered for my wedding at Collin Creek Mall. My wedding wasn't there. We registered there. And this year marks my 20th wedding anniversary. So lots of memories.
I have a memory there too. When I came to Dallas for my job interview at Channel 4 in 1986, I met a friend of mine, and we had dinner at the Fridays right there by Collin Creek Mall, and that was 1986. That was a very long time ago.
Gosh, well, it'll be interesting to see. So if you are interested, and you're one of the many people who asks on Facebook or Twitter or sends emails and has, as long as I've worked at the city, just stay tuned. I mean, every meeting is broadcast on Facebook Live and on planotv.org, as well as on several local TV stations, or of course come in person. But you'll see when the meeting agendas are posted, we expect to see it come to planning and zoning for that initial plan review sometime in January, but it may be February. But just stay tuned and follow the progress. And you know, that's a wonderful opportunity to also come with your opinions and provide feedback, because I'm sure the developer would love to hear from you.
As with any planning project, the citizens will get their opportunity to have input.
Absolutely, and I think that's an important thing. Sometimes we know that it's tough because Steve and I both live here in Plano. There are a lot of things going on, and planning and development projects aren't necessarily the top thing on your list. You've got to feed your family, you've got to get to work, you got to clean the house. You know, all of these other things are going on, and planning and zoning isn't front of mind. But there is a process in place, and there is an opportunity for feedback, and it is true with anything in life. The earlier you provide feedback, the better. It's really tough to come in at the last minute with feedback that would have been useful early on. So get involved now and pay attention. And there's a process. If you want to know more, we can put that information up in the show notes on what the planning and zoning process looks like. And you can click on that, look at the opportunities for public comment, and just follow this project's process along. Well, this isn't the only thing on our minds, although obviously we're pretty excited about Collin Creek Mall having some kind of rebirth. So maybe, Steve, we should talk about some of the other things that are going to happen in January in Plano.
Sure. There's a very popular event every year in Plano. It's known as Daddy's Little Sweetheart Dance. It's Saturday, January 12th at the Plano Event Center. People enjoy an evening of music and dancing for fathers or a significant male in the family, and young ladies 4 to 14 years old. We'll have a free photo booth as well as a professional photographer and caricature artist available for an additional fee for anyone who chooses. Each young lady will get a special thank you gift at the end of the night. Registration required for each adult and each child attending, and this one sells out every year, Shannah, and we'll put a link to the registration in the show notes.
That's right. So that means probably as soon as you listen to this podcast, if it's before January 12th, you need to go ahead and click that link and get your tickets if you haven't already. The Plano Event Center is actually a pretty popular event in, a popular event location in January. Another annual event that they host is the Dallas Area Train Show on Saturday, January 19th. Steve, did you know that this show is actually the largest model train show in the entire North Dallas area?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't either. But everyone is welcome to attend. You don't have to necessarily be a train buff. You know, novices who are just interested in seeing cool trains. You know, the trains at North Park Center are always popular during the holidays. So if you love going to see that, go to this train show. Or if train building is one of your hobbies, please come if you're a seasoned engineer. There'll be club layouts, how-to clinics, and of course they'll have vendors there who are also selling trains. There's a cash entry fee, so please check out our show notes for details on how much that costs and what the hours are.
Let's talk a little bit about our Neighborhood Services Department. They work with Plano neighborhoods and address issues related to the maturing of our city.
Right. So many people are probably aware of their bigger programs and services, like the popular party trailer or the Great Update Rebate. You may have heard of the First-Time Homebuyer Program or Love Where You Live. And of course, who living in a city anywhere in the world hasn't heard of property standards?
That's right. But they also do quite a bit of work within our neighborhoods as well. One series that's really helpful is the Neighbors Connect Roundtable series. It helps strengthen neighborhoods by engaging residents through peer-to-peer sharing and subject expert discussions. These discussions cover various neighborhood topics such as engagement strategies, beautification, and much more. The roundtable is held quarterly, and the first one for 2019 will be on Thursday, January 17th at the Davis Library.
Well, you know, speaking of the library, there's always something great going on for Planoites of every age. One of my favorites that people might not be aware of is Sensory Storytime. This is a special weekly story time for ages 3 and up, and it's designed to be interactive and inclusive for kids with special needs such as autism spectrum disorders, sensory integration challenges, or short attention spans. Unlike other story times, though, we do ask parents to register their children in advance. You can simply stop by Parr or Davis Libraries beginning on January 9th, or you can email sensorystorytime@plano.gov to find out what the availability is and to register. Now, you may not know, Davis Library has been holding their Sensory Storytime on that day and time for quite a while now, but this is the first year that we're adding another one at Parr Library for the spring.
Students are returning to the classrooms after their winter holiday break, and for teens, it's time to start thinking about college prep exams. Did you know that our library helps students with ACT readiness? Teens can take a practice test on an actual ACT exam and then have a 1-hour tutorial to go over the exam, no charge at all, it's all free. This does require registration though, beginning 2 weeks in advance. There will be a similar session for the SAT at Haggard Library in March. Look in our show notes for details.
Well, I can tell you my parents would have loved that. I remember taking the ACT 3 times. It paid off as well because my score improved every time and I ended up getting a full ride scholarship to university. So that was the best investment of time possible, but maybe I might have only needed to take it twice if I'd had a review session.
I think you were much smarter than me.
Well, let's talk about one final thing that the library is bringing back. This is a new series and it was incredibly popular. It's called Read to the Bump. So if you are a mom who's expecting or caring for a newborn, you'll want to check out the Read to the Bump series. You learn simple practices from specialists about supporting your baby's development and early literacy. Our January 26th session, Making Music, focuses on how music promotes learning, communication, and health. Personally, I'm pretty excited that the Plano Symphony Orchestra will be the specialist for this session. And one final thing to take note of if you're a library lover, all of our library locations are going to be closed in observance of Martin Luther King Jr. Day, January 20th, which is Sunday, and the 21st. Other facilities throughout the city will be closed as well, including the Municipal Center. The best thing to do is check the city website for holiday closure information, and we'll give you the link to that.
Our special guest today is Nicole Warhoftig, who's the supervisor of our Sustainability and Environmental Education Division. Nicole, welcome to our Inside Plano podcast. We always like to start off the interview by asking our fellow city employees to tell us something about themselves that we don't know. So what is it about you?
Well, a lot of people don't know that my degree is actually in engineering, and I used to design streetlights and traffic signals for the city of Los Angeles.
It's funny, we have so many people at the city that come from so many different spots across America, and even other countries too. You're a New Yorker.
Yes, I grew up in upstate New York in a little town called Binghamton, and I went to school in an even smaller town called Potsdam, New York.
And what brought you to Plano?
It was a great opportunity. My kids were getting older, and I was ready to go back into the workforce. I was a stay-at-home mom for 18 years, and loved Plano, and thought it was going to be a great opportunity for me to jump right in.
Well, Nicole, let me ask you this. The name of the department is Environmental Health and Sustainability. I know your team focuses on sustainability and environmental education. I've always wondered, what does sustainability mean?
I guess if I had to summarize it, I would say it's really protecting our resources so that they're available for future generations. So in our division, we educate in all areas of sustainability: water conservation, energy conservation, recycling, gardening so you can grow your own sustainable food, things like that.
You mentioned recycling. Recycling has become a very common practice. Why is your team focusing on recycling for 2019?
Well, there's been a lot of changes in the past year with recycling. A lot of it has to do with what's known as the China ban, or the green sword. So approximately a year ago, China, which originally received a lot of United States recycling, shut their doors, and they said, we're not going to take your recycling anymore. You're sending us trash. You're sending us a product that's really not usable to us, and we don't want to collect your trash anymore. So that's really forced us as Americans to clean up our act, per se, and to really think about giving them a clean product. So we're focusing on reducing our contamination and our recycling here in Plano in 2019.
Tell us a little about the Back to Basics campaign.
So the Back to Basics is actually a campaign that was started by Republic Services, who is the company that processes all of Plano's recyclables. They are the ones that have the materials recycling facility in Plano that's going to be opening in January. They had one 2 years ago that we used, and it burned down in a fire. So for the past 2 years, we've been using a temporary MRF. So we're excited that we're going to be getting a new one there. And they really want to focus on what they actually want in the recycling, which is your cardboard, paper, plastic, glass, and aluminum, or your soup cans, your soda cans, things like that. So those are really the basics that they want to focus on, and because we are giving them our products, we want to focus on the same messaging.
We always tell people not to put things into their recycling carts that don't belong there. What's the impact of that actually happening?
So that is what we call contamination. So any items that are put into the recycling that don't belong there risk that entire load being sent to the landfill. So the ultimate goal with recycling is to keep items out of the landfill. So if you put items in that are wrong items, or if you put items in that are dirty, for instance, containers that still have food in them or liquid. If you pour a half-filled bottle of juice into your recycling cart and it's loaded with newspapers, then you're going to get soggy paper, and that's just not going to be a good, clean product.
I typically take my recycling out in a plastic bag, and I know they sell these blue recycling bags at the grocery stores, and I use those to keep our recycling bin clean. Is there a right way to put things in the outside cart for recycling?
Republic has actually asked us to put the items in loosely, and the reason for that is they can see exactly what's coming in your recycling. They can see if there's contaminants or items that don't belong there. One thing that I do at my house is I have the side-by-side bins. I do use plastic liners in both of them, and when I dump my recycling out of it, then I actually take that bin and use it as my trash can. So I'm still replacing the bags frequently. I'm just not putting the bag in with my recycling.
Got it. Do we have anything, you mentioned this briefly, do we have to do anything special before tossing things into our recycling containers?
So one of the other campaigns that Republic is promoting is empty, clean, and dry, meaning that the items that they receive at their MRF, they want to be empty and free of food or liquid and somewhat dry. So our new campaign is just giving that a little action item called rinse, shake, and toss. So when you have your soup container or your jar of pasta sauce, just make sure that the contents are empty. Give it a quick rinse if you can, shake it out so nothing else comes out of it, and then you can toss it in your recycle bin.
It was big news in Plano when we could put our plastic grocery bags in our recycling containers, and then we were told we couldn't do it anymore. What happened?
Yes, so that's been a big question over the past couple of years. And that also refers back to the MRF fire that I mentioned from 2 years ago. At that time, they did tell us that plastic bags were going to be accepted. Once the fire happened and forced us to this new MRF, it's a much older MRF with older technology, and the bags and things like garden hoses and Christmas lights, they get tangled in the machinery. We call them invaders. And it requires the machines to shut down actually multiple times a day. So really the best way to dispose of your plastic film, and that can be your dry cleaning bags, your grocery bags, the wrappers on your paper towels, on your tissue boxes, your toilet paper. Any of that clean type plastic can be brought back to any of your shopping stores, Target, Kroger, Walmart, and they all have receptacles at the front of the store, and they'll make sure it's recycled properly.
Good to know. Many people do home delivery from Amazon to HelloFresh, UPS to Instacart. What challenge is there with all of this packaging coming to homes?
So a lot of the challenges are, there's a great deal of it, first of all. But we do want to make sure it's disposed of properly. So the most important thing to do with your packaging is to remove all the contents. So a lot of people just leave them intact with their packaging in it and just put it out at the curb. So what we suggest is to make sure all your packaging is removed. So remove the pillow packets, remove styrofoam, remove any peanuts, any plastic wrappers like that, throw those in the trash and break your boxes down. And your boxes can actually be put out with your yard waste. So if you break down the boxes and put them out next to your cart with your yard waste, then they will actually get turned into organic compost at Texas Pure.
Very good. And what is one thing, Nicole, that you'd like Plano residents to know about recycling?
One thing I would say is that we truly do appreciate their efforts to recycle, and to remember that every pound of trash that they can recycle is a pound less that's going to our landfill. That's also ultimately going to extend the life of our landfill. But even before we get to recycling, I think I'd like residents to remember the other two R's in reduce, reuse, recycle. If you can think about ways to reduce and reuse before you even get to recycle, that's another way to really reduce the amount of trash.
Nicole Warhoftig, Supervisor of Sustainability and Environmental Education, thank you so much for joining us on our Inside Plano podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
That was a great interview. My husband and I work really hard on recycling, so that information that Nicole shared was helpful to me. And I'm also really glad that the sustainability group is working on sending out updated information to all of Plano. You know, it was interesting listening to Nicole talk about the municipal recycling facility, the MRF, burning down. And there's a special reason why that jumped to mind today.
2 years ago today is when they had the fire at the MRF.
That's right. For those of you who don't realize, we actually record this podcast a little in advance of the new month. So today is December 28th, and this was not a good day for Steve or I in public information, and our role is quite small compared to the first responders who had to take care of the fire. And people don't realize the tremendous amount of work that our public works department, specifically what we call environmental waste services, everybody else would know that as trash and recycling. So much work went on in the background. They had to identify a new location for recycling collections, worked very closely with our partner, Republic Services, to have a minimum impact. And on the public information side, I was very grateful for all of the Plano residents who reached out and asked us questions. What can we do? How can we keep our recycling load from piling up yet not adding it to the trash collection? So that was a very difficult 2 weeks really of working through, but they had a solution that's worked quite well for the last 2 years, and we're excited to see this new MRF come online.
You know, the 3 R's, recycling, reusing, and reducing, is so very important to the city of Plano. And for that interim period there, we were concerned just as much as our residents that all of our recyclables were going to end up in the landfill with the other trash. And it really is amazing how quickly our contractor worked with the city to get another location where the recyclables could be stored and distributed. And really, I think it was just a few days that we had to send those recyclables to the landfill, which was a major accomplishment for the city of Plano.
That's right. And we do, in fact, as a city, track the diversion rate. You know, we're looking at what do we divert out of the landfill to recycling, and there's a cost figure associated with that. So this isn't just about hugging a tree and feeling good about yourself. This is actual dollars and cents savings. So it was important to us to minimize that impact and that cost. Nobody wants to have to pass on added costs for trash service.
And you heard the good news from Nicole that our recycling partner, Republic Services, has rebuilt the MRF. It will be fully operational very soon. And of course, we'll have photos and video to share with you as soon as it's back online.
Sure. Well, I love looking at all of those behind the scenes, you know, the watch it made in the USA kinds of things. So I can't wait to see photos from inside, because I've never actually watched how the recycling process works once it leaves my green can and makes its way on forward. Same
here. I always enjoy those things. You know, my one thing this month relates to sensory Storytime. The city has really done an extensive outreach to our special needs community through adaptive recreation. Sergeant A.D. Paul, you may want to mention some of the classes that he holds. He has an autistic child, and this is a mission very dear to his heart as well.
Yeah, you know, there's a crisis intervention response team that the police department you know, is part of their overall department services, and they work with our special needs community and those with severe mental disorders. And really, how do you build a trusting relationship? You know, the police are there to serve and protect, and I think it's really important that that serve comes first. And you've told me that you know AD very well and have known him for years. He truly has the heart of a servant and is concerned with making sure that adults who have special needs but are, you know, integrated into the community, if they happen to be pulled over. And even I, Shannah Haley, have been pulled over in Plano for making a U-turn where I shouldn't have been. These things happen to us, but there's no reason to be afraid of that encounter with a police officer. But if you have a special need of some sort, you may not realize that, and you need help practicing that social situation.
Absolutely.
Well, that is one of the things that I do love about living in Plano. It's unusual to have a city that says we care about every single resident, and not just says that, but then puts into place programs and services that meet the needs and support every member of the community. And that's just one of the things that makes living and working here so great. Well, I'm going to cheat a little bit on my one thing because it's actually something that you and I both like to talk about.
It's got to be food, restaurants.
Of course it is. So just yesterday, I was talking to our Director of Environmental Health and Sustainability, Rachel Patterson, and I got an updated list from her on how many food establishments there are in Plano.
How many do we have?
1,720. Now, to be fair, that's more than just restaurants. It's food service kind of in an aggregate. But you and I have talked a lot about how many dining options there are in Plano. And the reason I mention this as my one thing is last month, so early December, I read an article in the Dallas Observer about the top 100 restaurants in Dallas. And of the top 100, there were 9 Plano restaurants in that list.
That's right. Plano and Richardson both dominated the list in terms of number of restaurants in the top 100, both with 9. Now, some of these restaurants have locations in other cities as well, but here are our 9.
Good luck with these.
Knife, Sichuan Folk, Big Claw, Wu Wei Din, Kumar's, La Salsa Verde, Lima Taverna, Morafan, and Tasty House.
You know, I really find it fascinating. Good job, by the way, with that list. It's fascinating that we are so well known for regional ethnic foods. I mean, we've talked about that many times. You can find literally any specialization of any cuisine from anywhere in the world in Plano. And we like to eat a lot of them, don't we? Of course.
And we've talked about it before that, you know, per capita, per 10,000 people, Plano has just as many, if not more, restaurants than San Francisco, the city by the bay, which is known for their outstanding eateries. It's incredible to think that Plano has more restaurants per capita than San Francisco.
I agree. And it's also crazy to me if you consider, you know, it's easy to think of when a city kind of first starts, when a city is first founded, it's a lot of mom and pop restaurants. And then as you grow, you have a lot of the big chain restaurants come in. And then as you evolve, you might have a mixture of everything, including chef-driven restaurants. And if you look at that life cycle, it's fascinating to me that yes, we have some wonderful chef-driven restaurants. And yes, we have some very good big box chain restaurants. But that list that you mentioned, you know, most of them are mom and pop. They're locally owned. They're your neighbors. They're getting up early, going and cooking all day to feed you, to feed themselves, to feed their family. And they do a really, really good job of that.
You know, there's something for every person and every palate in Plano.
I totally agree with you. And again, that's what makes Plano great. Speaking of great, make it a great 2019 Plano. And I'd like it if you would help us make our 2019 great by leaving us a review. It really does help people find our show, and we look forward to continuing to grow the podcast in 2019. But until then, we'll talk to you next month. Bye.
Happy New Year, everyone.